before the terms UX or UI were invented, or at least I think so, and they weren't used in the context of online, which of course they are now. We had a vice president of user experience, which to me was like a mind-blowing idea in the early 90s. Well, actually, it was called member experience because we were called members, AOL members. So as we were starting to create these experiences for people who wanted to get their news, and you started to think for the first time about, well, they could talk about the issues they want to learn about, and we could send them an email. That was like mind blowing, this idea that you could do it that way. And we could do live chats, and we could have a live chat just for Republicans and a live chat just for Democrats. And then we're like, oh no, but that's going to create a bubble and they won't talk to each other. That's going to be a problem. Of course, we ended up doing that because that's what users clearly wanted. They wanted to find their own people. And we ended up, creating chat rooms by topic and by party. And then when the analytics became available, where for the first time you could look at what users were clicking on a page. And, we first started, using the term clickbait, okay, what's going to be clickbait? And then those of us who came from, true journalism, we were like, we can't do clickbait. That would be, immoral. And then the people who came from, marketing were like, what do you mean? Of course we should do clickbait. And so there was that, we call it the battle for the homepage, because AOL's homepage, by the 99 or 2000, you're having, I don't know, tens of millions of people coming through that page. And so if you could buy the click on the homepage, and that was huge. And in fact, I feel that's the reason we lost out to Google. I mean, this little startup named Google, these guys show up and they were like, we were like, who are these guys? They're like, and their page was so ugly, it was so plain. But, those of us that were more purists and didn't want to sell search, we're like, they've got it. I mean, this is the answer. You can't sell search, right? You're going to lose the trust of your users. And sure enough, AOL, I believe that was one of AOL's downfalls. But, we were, the purists, or the more journalistic people didn't win the day there. And so, that's an example of where I think it was fascinating being at the beginning of the period when you could start to learn, what users were clicking on and how you could monetize that, or when you should monetize that. I was responsible for creating the news policy at AOL, where we, decided, okay, we're going to box things in and put sponsored content on that. And people were like, no, why do we have to do that? And, we pushed for that, because, someone's paying to be there. It's not necessarily the best search. That was all fascinating, being the beginning of that and seeing how users responded to one type of treatment on a web page versus another.